Ooh, welcome to Big Brother Basics, where we break down the basics of Big Brother Canada 3. My name is Jacob Harple, and joining with me tonight is the always fantastic, always fabulous Keith Guerrero. How are you doing tonight, Keith?
I'm doing great. I just came back from Neha's morning funeral service of her game, but I'm sure we'll get into that. I'm ready. I'm ready.
Well, don't forget, it's Easter, so just like the good Lord, there is a chance for Neha to rise again.
Just like State Farm and a good neighbor, Neha will be there.
She will, but we'll talk about that in a second. There's so much to cover. We have the instant eviction episode to break down. Keith, how are you feeling right now? Because I've got a lot of mixed emotions that I'm dealing with at the moment.
I have like a really heavy heart and I can't explain it. Like I feel very drained and just like the inevitable is coming and it's just so like taxing. Like even when I was trying to tweet and be enthusiastic, I was just very like, man, there's like nothing you can do. There's nothing that can be done.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. So I guess the first thing we definitely want to talk about is the instant eviction. From what I gathered online and kind of what was going through my head, I felt like this was very early to be doing something like this, and it's hard because obviously I'm a little biased because Neha went someone that personally I enjoyed watching, that a lot of people enjoyed watching, so it's kind of hard to look at this more logically for like the game, but I feel like it's very, very early. They've done this every season. In the first season they did it at Final 9, and then in the second season I believe they did it at Top 8. So what do you think about having a twist like this at the Final 14?
Right. Having never seen like the previous Big Brother Canada seasons, I did think that this would be kind of early for an instant eviction, but I guess they do want to spice it up now that it's the third season just to keep it fresh and interesting. But it really didn't do any service for people that are not in the majority right now. And it would have been super helpful had Neha had any time, just a day before nominations to talk to Kevin. I'm sure that like even Newport wanted to talk to Kevin. Like it's really really difficult at that point in time uh, for Neha to have any chance immediately following that competition.
Yeah, well, so let's talk about that because Kevin goes in and he makes his nominations. He decides to nominate Neha and Brittany, and then after he walks out, everyone's grabbing him for game talk, this and that. Do you think how do you think Kevin actually regrets the nominations that he made? Do you think that it would have been different had it been a regular HOH?
Definitely. If it was a regular HOH, I think we would have seen different nominations and a different eviction. And I think it was evident in the way that we saw the Bermuda Triangle forming and how he wished that Zach and Jordan was with him inside the room to make the decision. So it was just very unfortunate that Kevin wasn't able to get all the pieces to make an informed decision. He just had the pieces that he had from the previous round, which did, contribute to a Neha and Sarah nomination. I mean, I did say that in the previous episode that would make sense for Kevin to do. So with those pieces and that being the only thing that he really had during the 5 minutes that he had to make a forced nomination, he did what he should have done. And it's hard for me to say that.
I,
But
I I agree. Yeah, it's definitely a hard situation. Obviously because everyone loves Neha, and Kevin's definitely probably lost a couple of fans tonight. But one thing that I tweeted was we have to put ourselves in Kevin's shoes. He doesn't know everything that we know. If he knew there was a Chop Shop Alliance and all of this and that, obviously he's not going to put up Neha. But given all the stuff that happened with the bathroom leak, not even a week ago, it's it seems like it's the better option at that time. Of course, after he talked with Neha and Zach and JP, it opens his eyes about different things that are going on in the house. But I think it's really unfair for people to be so harsh on Kevin and call him an idiot and a bad player when the decision that he made, really wasn't that bad of a decision for him at that time in the game.
exactly, I completely agree. The game is constantly evolving day in, day out, and had they just had one more day, the nominations would definitely be the same. Now, something else I kind of want to talk about is Kevin's reaction to winning head of household. Were you surprised that he was like visibly upset when he entered the DR?
I just don't know what to expect from Kevin anymore. Every day, every episode, he's talking about how he wants to throw everything. Then he's won 2 out of 4 of the competitions, and so I think there are. If you really want to throw a competition like that, you should study the answers so then you know what the incorrect answers are. And of course he didn't really get to compete until I think there was like half the cast was eliminated. But still, like, if you really don't want that HOH, you study the answers so you know the wrong ones. And I feel like if he really, really, really did not want that HOH, he could have done more to avoid it.
Sure, I definitely agree with what you're saying, but I'm also putting myself in Kevin's shoes. He's a poker player. He really likes to play odds makers, and the odds of him hitting the buzzer twice and getting it right both times is 25%. So he was thinking that maybe his odds would be that if he automatically hits it, Lady Luck would finally not be on his side, but she was on his side that entire competition, and even when he didn't touch the buzzer, the other person got it wrong. Like, it's just very unfortunate that he's painting a huge target on his back, and now everybody is like coming up to him as soon as he won HOH saying, dude, you're making history, you are such a great competitor and big brother. They're just like painting him super red for a really big fall, and I'm not really sure how Kevin's gonna negate that.
No, I agree. It's going to be really tough to see, if he can shake that target. But this could be a really bad move for him because he might have alienated most of the girls with this move, and the guys really don't have his interest at heart. So I'm really hoping that Kevin can get past this, but we'll have to see what happens. So Brittany and Neha are on the block. They reveal it's an instant eviction. And then, instead of just doing a normal vote, they decide to do this almost Survivor style.
Dare we say it?
Dare we say it? And they write their votes, come out, and reveal it. What did you feel about this twist where they had to show their votes?
It was very interesting. I do like vote reveals. I'm glad that Big Brother Canada is doing something like that, kind of show where everyone in the house was. But and I'm also glad it wasn't a unanimous eviction. Like, good job, Johnny. Good job, Sarah, for like giving Neha that respect of not going out unanimously. So the fact that they had to reveal it to everybody, I thought it could have been awful for people like Zach if he was trying to pull something. Or anybody else that would have like voted to keep Neha would have been awful for their game. So it was good that everybody basically did like the safe route. But I'm also really proud of Sarah and Johnny for taking a stand.
Yeah, definitely. That was interesting to see with Zach because if you could tell he scrambled out what he wrote eventually. So I'm guessing he might have voted for Brittany and then went back. Which I went because his reaction when they revealed it was a public vote. I was like, oh God, he voted for Brittany, like. And I almost kind of wanted him to because Zach is so good and he's played such a great game. I want to see him kind of have like that road bump. You know what I mean? Kind of see how he handles it and works his way out of it. But, he did the smart thing to do. What did you think about Sarah's reaction? Because she gave us a DR where she said, I'm so pissed at myself. I knew what the right move was and I didn't do it, but I just couldn't do it with Neha. It's an emotional response, but do you really think that was the right thing to do? Should she have just jumped on the train and voted out Neha, or should she kind of shown her loyalty almost to one of her closest allies in the game?
This is where you kind of get to see people's character versus people's strategy, and I would say that Sarah was not willing to compromise her character to further herself in the game, knowing that Neha was campaigning her ass off to stay, and she just, as a Big Brother fan, respects that so much. So there was no right or wrong move for Sarah. I would have understood whether she voted out Neha or voted out Brittany, but now that she's voted out Neha, to me it shows that Sarah is willing to make a stand. It shows me that she's not going to just bend down and let anybody just roll over her. And I think it motivated her too to like have the wake-up call, like, I'm in this minority. One of my closest friends went home. And you know what? It's time to buckle down and try to win the next HOH.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that this might catch up with Sarah in the future?
Oh, yeah. Like, I do think that this could isolate her from the house. And I don't know how she could wedge herself back in, but I also think that that dynamic was already there.
I agree.
There's a lot of people that are playing middle of the road and under the radar very, very well, very like really, really well. And I think Sarah just enjoys being different and doesn't really need to go with the norm and the flow and the majority. She like is a free spirit, and I'm really, really excited that she's willing to make a stand whenever she feels the need to.
Yeah, honestly, I think she's an outsider regardless of what she did. So, mad respect to her for standing up to the house and saying, you know what, this is my friend. Enough. I'm not letting her go out on a unanimous vote. That's not going to happen. So, props to her. We need more players like this in the game, especially on the women's side, which is what I want to talk to you next. We had that scene with all the five girls, in the bedroom just coming to the realization that there's only five of them left. And, you have people like Pilar say, oh, I just realized that. And Sarah just being like, why have you guys not been paying attention? This is what's happening. I've known that this is happening. What's going on? What did you think about that scene? Because I was just kind of like, I could sympathize with Sarah. It's like she wanted to just shake each girl individually and be like, wake up.
I loved Pilar's reaction the most. She was like, "What? One, two, three, four. Is this all the girls in the house?" Like it was so
Oh
like,
my
so cute to
god.
see. I also thought it was great that the five of them got together and just had like a little powwow before the HOH competition, saying, you know what, three of the girls went home this past week. Three other girls were on the block with them. I mean, come on, like that's absolutely crazy. We should like totally win. And then even with Willow got a lot of airtime, and she's in the chop shop, but she also was like, you know what, I do have the chop shop, but I'm also very uncomfortable with the amount of women that are leaving, so I'm kind of like playing for the women this round, and it was cool to hear her say that, because I wasn't sure if she was just going to be like, you know what, just going to nominate the chicks themselves, and it'll be fine. But yeah, it was. I'm glad it happened, and I think it'll open up some like because Pilar's very green in the strategy realm of things, but we're just pouring some water over her seed, and hopefully it'll sprout some thoughts.
Yes, let's get some kind of thoughts, some strategic thoughts going on. Hypothetically speaking, I'm interested to see what you think. If Willow had won this HOH, who do you think she would have nominated?
Yeah, I would think she would nominate two guys outside of the chop shop. So maybe like a Kevin Jordan nomination. I could see that happening. Uh,
I would think it would have been interesting to see if she would nominate Godfrey, considering that he was her partner. That would have been interesting.
yeah, yeah, it definitely would have been interesting, but I don't think there's any love lost because we saw who has to sleep on the gears 24 hours, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, that's a great point. And as much as it would have been cool to see Willow do something like that, I have more faith in Brittany and Sarah to make the better decision, and I can't trust Willow with all the chop shop in her ears.
Exactly.
Johnny might have been the target. Who
Actually, Johnny would
knows?
have been the target. I think Johnny would have
Probably.
been the target for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So Brittany and Sarah win HOH. What was your reaction? Because I was freaking out, and at first seeing Sarah and Brittany as partners, I was a little worried. But then as soon as Brittany gave us that DR where she was like, "Oh, I'm a model. Like I got this," I was like, "Yes, yes." I knew they were gonna make it really far, and I was ecstatic to see that they won.
I also want to thank Big Brother Canada producers for randomly assigning the pairs.
Did they randomly? Were
Randomization.
they random?
That they definitely weren't. They definitely didn't pick names from a hat because
I thought that
with
maybe they got to choose their partner or something like that.
no, they said like Big Brother Canada randomized it, and so like
No way.
yes,
I don't buy that for a second.
yes. So like the fact that Bruno and Greg were together,
Yeah.
like, and then like Sarah and Brittany, like everything just worked out perfectly. Canada, I want to thank you for that move.
Yeah, thanks for randomly assigning the pairs if that's what they did. Because I just assumed that they got to choose their partner, and that's why you had Bruno and Greg, you had Brittany and Sarah. I don't know. I just assumed that that's
Yeah.
what.
No, they didn't choose their partners at all, and because I don't think even like Bruno would want to expose himself in that way, to be that obvious and pick Greg. But yeah, it was randomly assigned, and it was exactly the pairings that I wanted to have. I was very surprised by Godfrey's performance. He lasted a really long time, longer than I expected. But I was really, really excited that Sarah and Brittany were just killing it. Like, it's not often where like the underdogs from the previous round can like win a competition like that, and especially when the platform got smaller and smaller and smaller, and then they have to stand on one foot. Like, that's tough. And they both killed it, absolutely killed it. It was so good to see.
Oh yeah, mad props to Sarah and Brittany. And let's go ahead and kind of focus on Brittany for a second because I wanna talk about where Sarah's crying, she's freaking out because one of her closest ally just left. She thinks that she alienated Brittany because she voted for her, and we got this really good side of Brittany that we hadn't seen on the show yet. And I think a lot of people have been sleeping on Brittany, saying how she's just kind of floating, she's just there. You and I don't want to dust our shoulders up, but you and I definitely mentioned that don't count out Brittany yet. She's doing what's best for her in this moment, and I loved what she had to say about the whole thing. I thought it was great. What do you think?
I always knew Brittany was a strong competitor, and I don't like that just because she's not flailing her arms around creating Girls Alliance like Cindy, or talking about, like, I'm going to get home Greg, mark my words, like Neha. Brittany's still going to do exactly the same thing. She's just a lot more chill about it. So, like, like, she was the pawn for 2 weeks. Like, she's already being placed in that role. I appreciate Sarah giving the HOH to Brittany, so hopefully she can break out of that pawn status, make some moves, make a dynamic nomination, make all these people regret even thinking about her as a pawn, and hopefully, like, helping out her game in the future. I think Brittany's smart. Like, she is somebody that's going to make the best nominations. And, like, even when she was talking about Sarah painting a picture on her back, and then she said that inevitably is going to be on me, too, because I have Sarah's back, that made me like Brittany even more. She's willing to fall for the people that she's close with, and Sarah just voted her out. So, like, Brittany's not going to be emotionally like, Sarah voted me out, I'm not working with her. She knows where she stands in the house. She knows what she has to do. And just because, yeah, like I said, she's not being all over the top like Cindy and Neha doesn't mean that Brittany's not going to play a good game. I think that Brittany's going to play a great game, and I'm really looking forward to seeing who her nominations are going to be this week.
Yeah, I think she's being very smart about everything. And, if you look at her past competition, yes, she was the first off in endurance, but, sometimes your body just isn't built for whatever competition you get faced with, And so that competition, obviously, she didn't have the best body for it. It is what it is. I think, and I'm not sure about this, but I think she also did really well in that veto competition too, the Beaver one. I have to go back and watch, but I think she was definitely in it. And so, yeah, I didn't like that people were sleeping on her, and I think she had the perfect approach. She was sitting next to Cindy with an S, who was being very vocal, very loud, and Brittany was just like, I'm going to sit back, I'm going to, take a chill pill, I'm not going to rub anyone the wrong way, I'm not going to, overextend myself, and it worked perfectly. She stayed unanimously. So I am so stoked to see Brittany in the power position, see how she handles it, who she puts up on the block. I think we're going to see a really good side from Brittany, and I am so ready to see it.
Same here.
So I want to talk about our boy Greg.
Okay, let's open that can of worms.
Oh, first of all, I loved what he did during the voting because it's just like there's such an intense moment. Everyone that's watching is obviously very upset because Neha's going. We all love Neha, and here comes Greg, just chop chop baby, you just got chopped, and I just start thinking, oh man, Greg, if there is a Canada HOH, you are setting yourself up. You're setting yourself up. This guy is so just obnoxious. It's ridiculous. And the conversation he had with Sarah at the very end of the episode might have been my favorite part of the episode tonight.
Yeah, Greg has no gameplay, and it baffles me how little like he's thinking about the feeds aspect of it, like the likability factor. How does he think he's gonna win when he knows that Canada like lets the public decide certain things in the future in the game? And I don't know, it's just, how can you not see how unlikable you are? Like, look in the mirror and ask yourself, do I like what I see inside? Am I okay with this? And I don't think he asks himself that enough.
Well, I mean, he knows how much Neha is well liked because of that HOH competition, and so the fact that he like just was so him and Bobby too, just so
Bobby
so
is actually somebody I had more issues with.
yeah, and so the fact that he did it, it's almost like he's pouring salt on the wounds, and maybe he doesn't know, maybe he just doesn't get it, but it's so funny for anyone watching the show just to see this guy just be so unlikable, and then when he tried to pull with Sarah, I want to talk about that. So he comes to Sarah and he's just basically like, I know you're pretty much making the noms, which I thought was really bugged me the wrong way. Because Brittany has her own mind. Brittany's a smart chick, so to think that Sarah's going to have complete control. Of course, she's going to have some say. Those two are obviously together now. Everybody knows it. But to think that she has the total say and then try and spin it as you guys should just do what the house wants and take out Johnny, it was so funny to me. Just so funny to watch him try and actually sell that to Sarah.
Yeah, and my favorite line was, I would appreciate it if you just kept me out of it. Like, okay, Greg, okay, yes, sir. I'm going to keep you out of it completely because the way you're coming at me is completely okay, right? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Don't come at somebody like in a hostile manner saying, keep me out of it. And the fact that he has to even do that, like, proves that he's not feeling secure with how he's standing with Brittany and Sarah. So, and yeah, I also want to touch on, like, they're making Sarah seem like the mastermind and Brittany like the puppet. No. Brittany's going to do what she needs to do, and sure, it's going to coincide with Sarah's game, but, like, give Brittany credit. Like, Brittany is playing the game, and she's so smart. And you know what? Even if she does have that perception in the Big Brother house, it'll only help Brittany's game in the future because all of her allies will get picked off before Brittany does. So I'm not even mad at like that being the perception, but like Brittany deserves way more credit than she's getting, both from the Twitter fans and from the house guests.
I completely agree. I think Brittany's playing an excellent game right now. So props to her. Let me ask you this: do you think that Greg would have been okay had he not had that conversation with Sarah? Because by having that conversation with Sarah and attempting to kind of bully the nominations or manipulate them, it definitely kind of put the spotlight on Greg. Do you think he might have had a chance of, of course we don't know who's nominated yet, but do you think he would have not been targeted had he had that conversation?
You know the answer to that.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I wasn't sure.
He really craves that spotlight, and he's comfortable. The sad thing is, Greg's comfortable, and when you get comfortable inside the Big Brother house, you're going to get a big serving of humble pie, and that's what he's going to get. He had the most awful approach with Sarah, and unfortunately, we only could see like one interaction past the HOH win, and it was between Sarah and Greg. So I'm sure there has been more, but like his approach is completely off. He should have, if he wanted a chance to say, he should have, been like, oh, like, what do you think? Like try to do something a little bit more like on the emotional side, but like having demands when you're not in power, saying keep my name out of it. Oh, you should do what the house wants. We should all have a house meeting so that we can determine what the house wants.
I hope
by the way, the house wants Johnny out. Like, what is that? What type of conversation are you trying to have? Like, what you're trying to like? He's really trying to piss on Sarah and call it rain, and Sarah's not having any of it.
Yeah, and like that's the thing about Greg too, is he hasn't won anything yet. He hasn't made a decision like through like a veto or an HOH. So kept his mouth shut. If he just reeled it back, he probably wouldn't have had anything to worry about. He could have just kind of let Brittany put up Bobby or Kevin, just because those were the two people that nominated him. But the fact that he has such a voice in this house that he tries to, convince people or bully people into doing certain things, it makes him such a big target and, the spotlight completely on him. So it's almost like, why shouldn't she nominate him? If he's the most vocal person in the house, then let's take that person out of the house. But I don't know.
I also love that like the members of the Chop Shop Alliance kind of like nourish and feed Greg's ego, because like they want him to be the leader, they want him to absorb all that spotlight, because he's thinking that he's like leading this awesome alliance when really they know what they're doing. They don't want to be that person. They're going to allow you to be that stupid person to step in the spotlight and be super unlikable. Now, it is going to affect some people's games, like Bruno's. Like, I thought he was playing a great under the radar game, but he is so close. Like, he's attached to Greg. Like, it's going to be super bad for Bruno's game.
I agree. It's always great to have an alliance with someone that you know is going to soak up the target, kind of like Amanda, McCrae, uh, Evil Dick, Danielle. But it's almost like Greg is too aggressive, too vocal. And at this point in the game, what good is a shield if he's just going to get taken out like week 3? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was like it's as if like if anybody aligned with Devin, like in Big Brother 16, like
Exactly.
nobody did and everybody was fine. Devin left, but this time Bruno is showing some loyalty to Greg, and that's going to definitely hinder him both this week and following weeks.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially if Greg goes this week. So let's go ahead and talk about the potential nominations. What do you think would be Brittany's best move for this week?
There's a couple of options for Brittany. She was a pawn 2 weeks in a row. She could easily just say, you know what, I'm nominating Bobby and Kevin. You both had my name come out your mouth, so this is just a return in the favor. Now, is that her smartest move? Not at all. And I don't think Brittany's going to play that type of game. She understands why the HOHs did what they did, and they pegged her as a weak competitor. Now she's HOH, and she can prove that she's not only not a weak competitor, but she's also not going to make emotional decisions. So I think she's going to do something maybe along the lines of if she wanted to target Greg, she could easily put Bruno up as a pawn because he's so likable by the rest of the house, despite his attachment to Greg. She could also nominate Godfrey right next to him as well because Godfrey is making himself unlikable as well, making Willow do the 24-hour gear thing, constantly picking all the women in the lineup for the HOH competition. So I do think that Greg's going to be the main target, and it makes sense because he made himself into that position, and I would be so glad if Greg got eliminated. What about you? What do you think is Brittany's best move?
It's tough because obviously there's a lot of things that we know. We would love to have 2 guys from the Chop Shop go up, but of course, Brittany and Sarah don't know about the Chop Shop. So I could see her potentially putting up Bobby and Kevin, but I really hope that it doesn't happen because I think the house would target Kevin, or at least the Chop Shop would try to rally the votes against Kevin. I think Kevin's best move to avoid that is to just go to Sarah and Brittany and explain to them, everything that we talked about that night was legit. I would have been totally down with going after the guys, but I had to make a decision right after I won HOH. I hope you guys understand, due to the stuff that happened in the HOH room, the things that I overheard at that time, it just made sense for me to target Neha. Just try and get them to emphasize about the situation that he was put. So I'm really hoping that if Kevin does that, he can get himself off the block. But yeah, I'd love for Bruno and Craig to go up. I think she should nominate Craig, definitely, especially what he pulled with Sarah, how he tried to strong on her. I think he's definitely got to go. He's not going to be someone that he's not someone that you can reason with. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think with Kevin, maybe even Bobby, even Bruno to an extent, you can talk to them and you can strategize with them and try to convince them why they shouldn't go after you. With someone like Greg, he's so headstrong, he's obnoxious, and, he's stupid. And so, if you know that someone like that is not on your side, take him out of this game. He's never going to want to work with you. He's always going to go after you. There's no reasoning. So I would put him up and put someone like Bruno next to him. Bruno's well liked. You could argue that, hey, I'm putting you up because I know you're a vote to keep Greg, and that way you're kind of going after that pair. I think that's probably what I would do if I were Brittany.
Yeah, I think that's the smartest option for her at this given time, but we'll never know. The game changes every single minute, every hour, and we'll see who Brittany listens to. I do think, though, that there is no possibility of a woman hitting the block this week at all.
Oh, no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be an all-male, whether there's vetoes used or not, it's only going to be men.
Yeah, which, thank God, we really needed a power shift, and it was really great to see players like Sarah and Brittany just understand, hey, we need to change something because this is looking too similar to Big Brother 16. And, one thing I was going to mention with the conversation with all the girls is, it's very important to know your Big Brother history, to look at past seasons and see what worked, what didn't work. Because if you just open your eyes and notice that 3 girls went in the very beginning, there's a guy alliance. They're going to steamroll us unless we do something about it. And so I'm glad to see that Sarah and Brittany were so determined and so focused on winning so they could shift it. Now, of course, they can only take one of them out next week. They could very well, be back in the minority. But I'm hoping that the way that they play it and the way that they nominate and target for eviction, that they can maybe create some deals, look for the cracks within these guys, and make something happen for the next few weeks.
Definitely. Now, we also have to think about this comeback twist. Neha is now one of 3 people competing, Risha, Cindy, and Neha. Who do you, out of those 3, want to see return back to the game?
This is tough because I was really hoping Neha would survive until the comeback twist so that Cindy would have a good chance at coming back in. But now that both have been evicted, I'm going to have to say Neha. And the reason why, I'm taking Risha out of the equation. I'm sorry. You're irrelevant to me. I'm sorry. She has no pull, whatever. And that's kind of the reason why I would pick Neha over Cindy. The one thing that Neha had that Cindy didn't was pull. Neha had Johnny, Neha had Sarah, and Neha had Brittany. Whereas Cindy, yes, she did try and get that girl thing going, but I think Cindy was pretty much alone in this game. There was a reason why she was evicted unanimously. So, of course, it would be great to see her come back and raise hell, but as far as who I want to come back, I want someone to come back and be able to go far. I don't want to case her. I don't want someone to come back and then come back right now. And although I think Neha would be in a tough spot even if she did return, I think she has a far greater chance of staying in the game rather than Cindy.
I would actually completely disagree with you.
All right.
I see Neha completely playing a Kesar game where she comes back, and as soon as she does not HOH, she goes right back out the door. Whereas Cindy, because she was unanimously evicted, there is no division in the lines of where she actually could stand. Like, she still has opportunities that maybe if there's cracks forming already, that she could be pulled as a number to help a certain side or not. Whereas Neha already made her bed. She's definitely going to be associated with the Sarah, Johnny duo minority in the house. And if Cindy were to come back in, sure, she could be associated with them, but I think she would have more opportunities that could be open to her way, especially if she comes in with an open mind. So
yeah,
I think that Cindy would be more so like an Amy Cruz return, where she could, potentially float like a hot mess until Final Five and get evicted.
Yeah, that's an interesting argument. I definitely see where you're coming from. Honestly, I think both are going to have a tough time staying if they come back. I think both are in similar situations. The only reason I gave Neha that slight edge is because she could have someone win for her, like Johnny or Sarah or Brittany, and then she doesn't get put up. Whereas Cindy, if she is alone, if she doesn't win that HOH as soon as she gets back, it could be really tough for her. But I totally understand. Cindy does have the potential to come back in and just be like, you know what, I'm a free agent. Who wants me? And it'd be interesting to see if maybe Jordan tries to pick her up and she becomes a weapon for Newport.
Exactly, and that's why I think Cindy would have more of an in than Neha would. But we could see.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. I wonder. We still don't know how, what's going to determine who comes back. They did say compete to come back in, so you kind of think it might be some sort of challenge. But the last time they did a returning twist, Canada voted. And so maybe just compete is kind of a loose verb, and it might just be be in the running to come back, be able to compete in the sense that they have the opportunity. Who knows? So I think if it's a Canada vote at this time, I think Neha is going to kill it. But if it's a competition, Cindy's a great competitor. I could see her have an edge.
Yeah, but those two, I definitely want either Cindy or Neha, probably more than anybody else who gets eliminated from the game to return.
Yeah, honestly, I do too. I'm not sure who could get evicted that I would want to see come back. Maybe Zach or JP, but I seriously doubt that one of them will be the next 2 evicted. But we'll see. Should be interesting, though. I'm very excited, and it's going to be a lot of fun to just see how this power shift goes. This is a great opportunity because, we didn't really get to see this last season. We had the same people that were in power at the beginning pretty much stay in power till the end of the game. So it's easy to be a good player whenever the HOH and the veto is on your side. And I think what really makes a good player is how they handle being in the minority, how they handle being on the block. And I think we're going to see that for a lot of players. And we're going to finally see players like Bobby or Greg kind of crack under the pressure and reveal to us how they might not be the best players. And it'll be interesting who's able to kind of lay low. And I think Bruno has the potential to keep us cool, not overplay. I don't know. I think we're going to learn a lot about some of the other players this week, and I'm really excited to see what happens.
Yes, I'm ready to see Chop Shop squirm. And I want them to like turn on each other. And also, this was just a random thought, but I do have to throw this out there. The times they use Greg's DRs when they force him to say something like, I gotta make sure that Sarah and Brittany don't win HOH so that the Chop Shop remains intact. Like, it's so forced and it's painful for me to see, but just wanted to get that out there. I can't stand Greg, and I hope that he gets eliminated this week.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. He gets chopped.
Chopped.
All right, Keith. Well, do you have anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this bad boy up?
Let's wrap it up.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you tune in for Monday nights. I guess it'll probably be a nomination and veto episode. So you definitely want to make sure you catch that. And do not forget to catch our breakdown of the episode. Also, follow us on Twitter at Most Humble, at Jacob Harple, at Sarcastivities, and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/BigBBBasics. So thank you so much for watching, and stay basic.
Stay basic.